What's going on, everyone? Kevin Durant has decided to stay with the Brooklyn Nets, at least for the moment, right? Who knows what's going to happen at the trade deadline? Also, more teams will be available to maybe participate in a potential trade, such as the Phoenix Suns with DeAndre Ayton. But nonetheless, the Celtics were a team that was rumored and were a front runner for some time. And it was a package around Jaylen Brown. Marcus Smart was even thrown out there, Derek White, and then some first round draft picks. But now this trade has completely fallen through. The thing is, this is going to definitely have some lasting residual effects on the Boston Celtics. And I don't necessarily think that like Jaylen Brown is a guy that's just not going to show up or, he's going to cause trouble or mayhem. But the whole reason the Celtics wanted to trade Jaylen Brown to begin with, outside of obviously it's Kevin Durant, but is because of the fear of Jaylen Brown potentially leaving in 2 seasons. He's not going to sign a max contract or a max extension because he would get more money in the free agency as a max contract, because just the way that the extensions work for players with his type of years, things like that. So it is in his best interest to become a free agent. He also kind of wants to be the number one guy, and he's kind of shown that he can lead that team and he can be that guy. And it's somebody that was putting up 20-point fourth quarters in a finals. Like, the guy is absolutely amazing, a two-way player, everything you want in this league. He's still very young with a lot of room to grow, a lot of potential, a lot of basketball ahead of him. Even Brad Stevens addressed some of the trade talks, but kind of just downplayed it. He was kind of like, well, you heard a lot of stuff, but it wasn't from our end. Like, that whole thing, trying to say like, oh yeah, well, we never publicly said, that we're trading Jaylen Brown. We just had talks about it, it's just, that's the thing. And look, Jaylen Brown was clearly not happy. We saw the tweet that he, just basically expressed his emotions, his feelings. It was very brief, but still, it got the point across, right? And the idea of him potentially leaving, I think, has grown exponentially. And I've seen a lot of comments, people leaving a lot of comments, even in live streams, stuff like that, where they, talk about how, like, what if KD and the Nets did this deliberately just to kind of throw the Celtics for a loop, kind of cut the competition, so to speak. But I mean, this began even before the Celtics were even in a conversation and even a thought for this potential trade. Also, when it comes to that, it's like, really they had this huge public display and just backlash and just craziness that is not over. And look, everything with the Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets is going to be amplified now, right? Especially Kevin Durant and that whole situation. Anything that is even like a minuscule thing, something that's just, part of the 82 game season, stuff like that, is going to get amplified by the media. There's going to be talks as we get to the trade deadline. Is Kevin Durant going to ask a trade? Is he going to, and then what happens next season? Does Kyrie bail and leave? And, does he get a max extension that he wanted? Like, what ends up happening? It's going to be the talk this entire season. And the Brooklyn Nets definitely have to rely on these 3 very unreliable guys. And I just think there's so much that needs to go right. And it's like, if one shoe drops, it could be a disaster for the Nets. But the Celtics, on the other hand, I still think they're going to be good. We'll see what happens in 2 years. But I think at least this season, they definitely upgraded the team. They're definitely in a great position. They were just in the NBA Finals. Jayson Tatum supposedly had a broken wrist or a fractured wrist. I don't know if that's just an excuse because he had such a terrible finals and everybody was like, what happened to you, dude? So maybe it's just kind of the thing that he threw out there to kind of give an explanation. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but did it really affect him through the finals? I don't know. Could have just had a bad finals. He's had moments throughout his whole career where he just is absent and just disappears at times. But nonetheless, I think he got the experience. I think it's a life lesson. It's something that he can kind of, put a feather in his cap and grow. He's still very young. He's the best player on the Celtics. And Jaylen Brown, I think, knows that too. And I think that that's a big concern, is that, how long does Jaylen Brown want to play second fiddle? Does he walk? And if you're the Celtics, you're never going to get an opportunity to get a guy like KD for Jaylen Brown. 2 years from now. Because very likely Kevin Durant, either if he rides it out with the Nets or he ends up getting traded before then. So that's kind of where we're at. And I just think Boston, they're going to be okay, at least for right now. I do think come, the next season, I could see maybe his name getting brought up a little more, especially if another disgruntled star wants out, which seems to happen like every 6 months or whatever, right? You just know that that's how it's going to go. But I don't think Jaylen Brown's going to be the guy that's going to muddy the water. I don't think he's a guy that's going to come in and just cause a bunch of issues and locker room problems and stuff like that. But also, to be fair, Marcus Smart too. I think that's somebody that we need to mention as well. Not as somebody that's going to cause a hissy fit or anything like that, but I'm sure he's looking at it too as like, hey, I was in those conversations as well, and I just won Defensive Player of the Year for you guys. The Celtics also have a history of doing this stuff. I mean, look at the whole IT situation for a more recent example. Like, it's just they have no problems cutting the cord and moving on from guys, even guys that have great years or great moments, things like that. And I just think that the Celtics absolutely explored possibilities. Now, obviously, a deal didn't get done. Exploring something and actually doing it are two different things, right? You could have the conversation, but it doesn't have to go anywhere. But they definitely had the conversation. Brad Stevens, he's trying to show face. He's trying to downplay it. And we're happy with the team we got. We're moving forward. The typical answers that you get. Like, hey, look, yeah, there was a lot of talk, but it wasn't coming from our end. That whole thing. All right. Like, sure. But anyway, those are my thoughts and opinions. And as always, I pass the question on to you. Let me know yours down in the comment section below. Do you think that the just trade proposal is going to have some, after effects? Is it going to send some shockwaves throughout the Celtics organization? Or do you think like, nah, it'll be fine. Everything's going to work out. Jaylen Brown is a professional, that kind of thing. But, these star guys, they're usually not very happy about being in trade talks, right? No, I mean, nobody's happy about being in trade talks because no one wants to get traded. You want to stay where you're at or at least be the one to leave that team if that's the case. But, it is. It's an interesting conversation, at least for the Celtics. And it's something I imagine they're going to continue to explore. And, they have to know where Jaylen Brown is at as far as like how happy he is or unhappy he is. But I do expect him to, show up to training camp, give 110%, because he's that guy. He's a dog. He's gonna grind. He's gonna do what he has to do. He's gonna be that dude for the Celtics next year. And I think the Celtics are in a really good spot. And look, at the end of the day, winning cures everything. If they're back in the finals once again, and this time they actually pull it off and win, then I think things will be good. Does Jaylen Brown really leave a championship contender? Does he really leave a team that he just won a championship with? Now, if that doesn't happen, I don't know. It could be kind of tough, especially if he feels like, hey, look, they would trade me for a guy that they believe in a moment, even after I was that dude for them. Because that's got to be how Jaylen Brown's looking at it, right? Like, I was the dude. Like, this guy's your golden boy over here. This guy is supposed to be your big superstar, your face of your franchise, this, that, and the other. And where was he? I was single-handedly trying to keep us in games, putting up 20-point fourth quarters, doing everything I possibly could. If this guy just gave me like 6 points, I would have been fine, and we probably would have won. But no, he couldn't even do that. He's got to be looking at it that way. To an extent. I don't think it's as blunt and bold as it's that, but I'm sure he's a little upset, a little salty over it. But again, winning cures everything. If Boston wins and they continue to win and they get to another finals, stuff like that, I think he'll stick around, because it's just like, where else are you gonna go? Especially, it also depends on the money. Like what team is in a position that has the money to sign him to where he can still be good and competitive. Because the last thing he wants is, to be 27 and, going to the Spurs that are dead last in the league or something like that. That's not what you want. But again, love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.